what it is. Do not adjust your dial or your volume. This voice is deeper and larger than little Kilmeade. This is Tyrus filling in for Brian Kilmeade today on the Brian Kilmeade Show. And yes, I've adjusted the desk. I've gotten rid of the booster seat, so I am comfortable. I am locked in. And if you hear those giggles already, that's right. I have the amazing one and only Charlie. Hey, and thanks for Charlie coming in. He ran as fast as you couldn't get here. Appreciate it. I wish we had different things to talk about this morning, because you and I want to know about your farm stuff.
Yeah.
You know, people don't realize that.
I had to do the Kilmeade sprint from downstairs up here and walked in just with like 1 minute to spare. Yeah, it is. And it's I was looking forward to talking about all the fun stuff as well. And it's a reminder of obviously, people are rooting for one side or the other in these situations, but we're talking about human lives at risk, and it's pretty freaking scary.
Yeah, and for like I said, those of us who weren't watching a lot of news or whatever, I mean, obviously the breaking news is that Israel has bombed Iran and has taken out some of their key infrastructure, particularly the nuclear stuff. And I guess my question to you is like, this is a war.
Yeah.
And Iran, via their proxy, committed war on Israel October 7th, and they've had 60 days to try. They were given 60 days to try to work something out. So I don't necessarily see the shock and awe. Israel's not playing around, and I don't understand why there's such a I can't believe they did this. I mean, they gave them 60 days. I think the president said it best in his tweet. Today is day 61.
Yeah. Yeah, and it does sort of raise the question about, well, why today? Why not at any point over the past 15 years?
Right.
And we went through the Obama years where you had President Obama, you had then Secretary of State John Kerry doing everything they could to sort of placate Iran and build Iran, give Iran all of this power. To shape and honestly, I've never been able to figure out what exactly the Obama policy was there. But whatever it did is it allowed the leadership of Iran to thrive and survive all this time. And so it does kind of make you wonder, like, why now? And might it have been easier if this had happened 10 or 15 years ago? But here's the thing: going back to your initial point, which is the most important one, which is this is war. Everybody seems to be in agreement that Iran is days away from being able to convert their nuclear program into nuclear weapons. And it's been days since inspectors have had any sort of cooperation with them. And supposedly we understand that they had enough nuclear material to make— I think
it was 10 to 15.
10 to 15
You
warheads.
just need one.
Yeah, you just need— exactly. You just need one. And it changes everything.
And again, I feel like I have to keep pressing upon this point. Israel didn't start this war.
Right.
October 7th, they ratchet things up. Now, we didn't have strong leadership in the beginning of this war. We have a strong American presence now in this war. Now, was this the best situation for America, who was in the middle of trying to do a nuclear deal? Probably not, but we're in America. Like, our country is divided by a huge ocean. Israel's in it. And if their intelligence, and again, they've been observing, what is it, 8 months?
Yeah.
They've been watching what's going on there. They had the intel. They're in proximity. This is not a oops, I wish we should have. If you think they're days away, then you 1,000% take the enemy out. I find it very hard not to be supportive of Israel in this situation, because if this was America and this was Mexico,
right,
there would be no question.
This situation would not even exist.
No.
But I love the way the administration has played this because they have been at arm's length about this. They have, Marco Rubio last night called this a unilateral action. President Trump said, we're not behind this. Obviously, he knew about it beforehand, and and I think that to take this very much an America First approach, where you're looking at this, you realize, and they both have said, President Trump has said, and Marco Rubio said last night, that Israel needs to be able to defend itself.
Yes,
which is true. But just saying that in and of itself sort of suggests a posture of a kind of a slightly hands-off posture by the United States. And it allows President Trump to stand there on the sidelines and say, hey, if you want peace, Iran,
yes,
if your people want peace, you come to us and we'll figure it out. And then that statement about it's day 61.
Yeah.
Holy smokes.
But hey, this is the thing that, and again, if I could, let me play a Sotfree from Netanyahu, because I think this kind of embodies the attitude of Israel.
The Jewish state refuses to be a victim of a nuclear holocaust perpetrated by the Iranian regime. I've made it clear time and again, Israel will never allow those who call for our annihilation to develop the means to achieve that goal. When someone comes to kill you, rise and act first. This is exactly what Israel has done today. We have risen like lions to defend ourselves.
He's just letting you know we are not playing in this is a real existential threat.
Yeah.
Iran is an existential threat, not just to Israel, to every free democracy country on this planet. But they're dealing with a real existential threat. Yeah. Where in America we had fake existential threats, i.e., it was President Trump. And I think standing on the sideline, but it's different than the previous administration.
Totally.
Because it felt like no support from an outsider looking in. It felt like there was no support, or there was always a questioning of Israel, not a support of like, this isn't our call, but we're here. I think that's the difference with this administration. They're not publicly saying, oh, Israel's bad for doing this. The Biden administration was basically making Israel out to be the bad guy. Right. In this situation, that the Palestinians were innocent victims in all of this. And I'm glad to see that narrative has changed.
Yeah, and that was kind of the posture we saw throughout the Obama years, was that it was all Israel's fault.
Yes.
And that Israel was the problem. And that's why I'll never be able to wrap my brain around why they wanted to empower Iran. And by the way, after the first Trump term, where Iran, just like Vladimir Putin, didn't have a pot to piss in. I mean, they had nothing.
Nothing.
And then when Biden came in 2020, I bet we've never seen a faster growth in terms of wealth and power for either Vladimir Putin or for the mullahs of Iran than when Joe Biden first came into office. Oil spigots got turned on.
Yes.
The price of oil went through the roof. They suddenly became massively wealthy. And of course, we saw the terror that they sowed from that. One thing that I think, though, is really important to sort of kind of consider at the moment is that, we have in the United States, we've been involved in some really screwed up things over the decades.
Yes.
And we have seen people, whether it's the war in Iraq or the 20 years in Afghanistan after the most spectacular toppling of the Taliban in the months after 9/11, that was brilliant. And then there reached a point a couple of months after that where we went into like nation building and all this weird stuff.
Right.
And so many of the people who have been jockeying for this war for a long time are the architects of untold disasters that we have endured, and our boys have gone and fought and died and been maimed for. And so it's a really troubling spot for those of us like you and me, and President Trump, by the way, who is very wary of those people and very wary of getting into something where our boys are going to have to basically write checks that we can't cash.
Right.
And so I have, just like the way you open the show, I'm scared for us and for the world. But I recognize that, Iran is the number one state sponsor of terrorism around the world. They are a threat to civilized people, especially in the Middle East. And obviously they're a threat to our closest ally in the Middle East. And so, it's, I understand why people are really uncomfortable right now. And I count myself among them, but
I feel, and I'll push back a little bit. I was physically uncomfortable and afraid during the Biden administration on all world fronts because I felt like we had no backbone. and that we took a
totally.
backseat. Even the president, this was not good for what we're trying to do right now. And I'm going to play. Can we play the shot where? I think it's number 4 here, where Donald Trump at the White House, he talks about he didn't want Israel going in because it could blow the deal. Do we have that?
I want to have an agreement with Iran. We're fairly close to an agreement. We are fairly close to a pretty good agreement. It's got to be better than pretty good, though, but it's got to be, I'd much prefer an agreement. As long as I think there is an agreement, I don't want them going in because I think I would blow it. Might help it, actually, but it also could blow it.
But that type of leadership is like, I prefer they didn't go in.
The dude gets real politic, unlike anybody else.
He just keeps it real. Like, hey, it might mess the deal up, or it might help it.
Yeah, Joe Biden came into the presidency as the most experienced geopolitical expert ever
50,
invented on
50 years.
Yeah, nobody had his chops when it came to geopolitics, and he messed up everything.
Thank you for using
touched.
the appropriate words.
He screwed up everything he touched. And then you get Donald Trump, who has zero geopolitical experience whatsoever.
Unseasoned.
Yeah, walks in and immediately sees every actor for who they are and navigates all of it. And the thing I think is really interesting is that, Joe Biden or Barack Obama or whoever you want to name could, President Trump could do something that was exactly the same as one of them, but it would be different for you and me.
Yes.
And the reason it would be different for you and me is because we've seen Trump, we see how he acts. He's a principled guy, unlike these other people. He's all like jaundiced by some worldview that all these people get bought into, whether they're paid. I have no idea why they buy into this stuff, but they get bought off by it. And so then they're no longer like thinking about the realities of the situation. And Donald Trump is not that guy.
No.
And he's willing to take the facts as they are, the situations they are, and make very wise decisions. And being able to trust somebody to make those decisions it's a total game changer.
And he put out this tweet, and it's on Truth Social, and I love that. And he's like, you had. And he said you had 60 days, day 61. Like, he's letting you know. But he was like, listen, this is my part. There has already been a great death and destruction, but there is still time to stop this slaughter. The next already planned attacks will be even more brutal. So this needs to come to an end. Iran must make a deal before there is nothing left. He's literally doing the pamphlet dropping. Yeah. We're no longer dropping the papers over the country saying get out. He's messaging them, but but while he's doing it, and this is the brilliance of it, while he's doing it, he's not condemning Israel. He's basically saying he's holding back. It's like a bar. Hey, if I let this guy go, if I let this dog off the leash, it's going to be scorched earth. Please help me help you by telling Israel we got a deal and do not finish the job, because I love that. That to me is still power. Like, hey, I'm trying to help, but I can't call these guys off. So do yourself a favor and get with me.
And the thing is that what's true in a barroom fight is true in the Middle East.
Life is life.
It's like, human nature is human nature.
Or two guys at a bar, and one guy going, hey, you want to do this?
Yeah. And the line about it's day 61 comes after his Truth Socials overnight, where he says, we had nothing to do with this. This was not our thing. We didn't do it. All this kind of stuff. The peace table is still open for you to come to. So he does all that and then drops the bomb. Oh, by the way, I said you had 60 days. Today is day 61. And it's like a wink as he walks away.
It's almost like you borrowed money, from the mob, and it's like, all right, you're gonna pay me back in 30 days. All right, I'm gonna pay you back 31. Hey, it's 15 days away. Don't forget my money. Day
31.
31. Yeah, that's when you get the golf club to the knees.
Yeah.
Huh? You like that? So, and it's that great Family Guy with Stewie and Brian owed him $50, and don't make me do this, man. So and before we go to break, I'm going to bring you back because I want to segue, because we're talking about borders, but I also want to talk about how you have built a border on your farm. So
nice.
we will get a chance to talk about a little bit of farming. All right, so we'll be, like I said, you've been listening to the Brian Kilmeade radio show with Tyrus. That's right, that's my name, with the impeccable Charlie Hurt.
That makes you think. This is the Brian Kilmeade Show.
He really likes the sound of his name, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does.
Brian Kilmeade Show. Brian Kilmeade Show.
And he likes other people to say it.
Yes, he does. And he just got me to say it because I'm Tyrus filling in for the great Brian Kilmeade. Now, listen, we talked about the important stuff, and now we're going to talk about some more important stuff because I don't think a lot of people realize how grassroots you are. You are a man's man, but you're a farmer. And
a fake farmer, but a farmer.
You take care of your animals at a high level.
Yep.
And you have been telling me stories of your battles with some of the vermin from protecting some of your favorite farm, because you've had peacocks, you have all the animals, some of the fun stuff you have, and you've had a war with snakes lately, and it's amazing. You finally have shored up the border that is your chicken coop.
Yeah, I think we have, and I know that you appreciate this. I kind of have a rule against killing snakes.
Yes,
because,
I love this.
They're such an important part, especially because I don't really like cats, because cats kill all the birds, and it's just whatever. So, but they keep their mice down, they keep the rats down. They're a wonderful part.
They have a purpose.
And you get to know them. If a black snake gets to be 7 feet long, you kind of get to know them, and they know you, and you just kind of, everybody minds their distance. But every now and then you get a little young upstart that comes around that doesn't know the rules. And just this week, in fact, we had about a 5.5 foot black snake got into the brooder coop. And if you just took one bird, one chick, and ate it. But that's not what they do.
No.
They go in there and they kill 5 of them. They try to eat one that they can't swallow, and they have to kick it back out, and then they go to, and they don't even eat half of them. But they kill a bunch of them. And I'm like, sorry, buddy, I got to cut your tail off right up behind the ears.
Yep.
And that's what we have to do. And I hate doing it, but it has forced me to design the perfect brooder coop.
I cannot wait to hear this. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't know if we have the special effects for a drum roll, but if we did, let me just add it in there because chicken coop guys everywhere, go.
You take the plastic bin from Tractor Supply and drill holes in the top. You put your with your hardware wire cap top with 2x4 around the top, and you have to drill it down into the plastic tub. Okay. And then you just take the light and rest the light on top of the wire. So there is no fire, it's not going to overheat.
Right.
And the chicks can get be wherever they want. They get as close to the light as they need or as far away. And I will bet you any amount of money there will never be a snake that gets into this thing.
I will take a $2 bet because I believe you.
There we go.
See, and again, this is why Charlie's such a cool guy, man. He's just not brains. He's bronze. He gets dirt under his fingernails. He's an American man.
There we go.
And it's all about American men today on the Brian Kilmeade Show with special guest man host Tyrus. Joining us now is an expert in the field who actually a little bit of a Nostradamus too, because he called for this, I believe, in 2012 with an amazing article. Joining me now is Matthew Kroenig. He's the vice president and senior director of the Atlantic Council's Scowcroft Center for Strategy and Security, and he's going to be joining us today via Zoom. So I'm pretty excited about that, and we're going to get his thoughts on Israel's strikes on Iran last night. So, Matthew, how are you doing, boss?
Yeah, I'm doing well, and it's a pleasure to be with you. I've enjoyed your work for many years, so an honor to be with you this morning.
Oh, thank you very much. And again, I know you're not going to do I told you so, but I feel like I told you so. I am in, and I think the majority that completely understands why Israel is doing what they're doing, given the fact that war was declared on them October 7th, and their existential threat is a real one, in fact. All things seem to be coming from Iran as far as financing Hezbollah and Hamas and stuff. So it was only a matter of time. And then, like I said, Iran had 60 days to try to figure something out, and President Trump so eloquently put, this is day 61. So as an expert on this, your take would be greatly appreciated.
Yeah, well, on the Told You So piece, I used to work on the Iran desk at the Pentagon, and when I left, I wrote a piece in Foreign Affairs that got a lot of attention. And I essentially said there are only 3 ways this crisis is going to turn out over Iran's nuclear program. Either we just give up and let Iran have nuclear weapons, but that would be catastrophic to live with those threats forever. Second, we could get some kind of deal, but I said that's going to be really hard. And I think we saw Obama's deal was too weak. Trump was right to pull out. So I said the only remaining option is the military option. And so I think Israel waited until the very last moment. Iran, according to several officials, was only a week or two away from the point of no return. And so it was a last resort, and Israel took military action to keep them from getting the bomb.
Yeah, and when you hear days away, that could have been hours away, or they could have, in fact, just were putting the bells and whistles, so to speak. And so you can't really have an issue with what Israel did, given the fact that Iran's been kind of known for pushing the line and trying to buy, and it's 1,000% trying to buy time. The pushback is different from the United States, and it just our response feels different now from the previous administration. I felt like everything that Israel did in the Biden administration was kind of scoffed, or was like almost a half-assed. If they were supportive, it was never full support. They're always trying to split the diff, and I think the new administration, no matter whether they disagree or not, you feel the presence of the United States in full support of Israel. Do you see the same thing I'm seeing?
I think that's right. The Biden administration was kind of trying to find a balance in the region. And I think the Trump administration understands that there are pro-American governments in the region like Israel, and there are anti-American governments in the region like in Iran. And we need to choose sides. It makes sense to support your friends and be tough on your enemies.
Now, one of the President Trump earlier, I played a shot where he was discussing this wasn't good for the deal, but then in the middle of him saying it could be easier or better for the deal. Do you foresee, because of your, can you two of your plans happen at once, where a military the military reaction or military force is being used to force them to come to the table?
Well, I think that the military option can strengthen your hand in diplomacy. And Frederick the Great used to say that diplomacy without armaments is like music without instruments. So I do think they go hand in hand. And maybe this new military pressure will coerce the supreme leader into finally making a deal. I think that is kind of unlikely, though. He refers to Israel as the little Satan, to the United States as the great Satan. And so I think if he agreed to a deal with the great Satan under this pressure from the little Satan, that he would look weak among his core supporters in Iran, in the military and the clerical establishment. So I think he'll probably continue to resist, even though he is suffering a lot. And this nuclear program that he spent decades and billions of dollars to construct is lying in rubble right now. So he is in a difficult spot, but I think he'll probably continue to resist.
Well, given the fact that the response from Iran with the 100 drones being released, and I think most of them were already knocked out by Israel's air defense system, it feels like they invested so much so into the nuclear side and the funding other people to do their biddings that they don't have the necessary military prowess to really pose an actual threat. Like, because they keep saying they're always our response will be earth shattering and the world will know, and then it's like 7 rockets. I mean, we're just not. We're calling their bluff, and they do not have the capabilities to, other than the terroristic random things, or hoping that 1 missile gets through, or 10 missiles, if they shoot 100, that 10 will get through, that they don't necessarily have the military prowess to where they could really put a stop to Israel if Israel decided to go full scorched earth on them.
That's exactly right. And you've had some journalists today saying, oh, this is going to lead to a wider regional war. But that overlooks the fact that Iran is actually really weak. And, 5 years or so ago, people would say, well, we can't strike Iran's nuclear facilities because if so, they'll ask Hamas to retaliate. But now Hamas has been almost completely decimated by Israel after October 7th. They'd say Hezbollah would retaliate. But now Hezbollah has been almost completely decimated by Israel, including with the really ingenious walkie-talkie and other types of attacks.
Yes.
And they'd say, oh, well, Iran's going to retaliate with massive missile and drone attacks. But then we saw last year when they conducted those attacks against Israel in October and May, Israel's Iron Dome system, with American help and technology, was able to shoot down almost all the drones. And so Iran's going to try to attack, but as you pointed out, they don't really have a lot of good options.
So they're not going to get their nuclear stuff. They lost a lot of scientists, I believe, or at least that's what the estimate is, and some of their generals. Do you support a regime change, or is it and I'm sure they're going to love this, or is it needs to be a come to Jesus moment for Iran, so to speak, in terms of the world that they thought they were in, or the position they were in? They grossly overplayed their hand, and they're going to have to deal with some really tough rules going forward.
I think a different government in Iran that respected the human rights of its people, that was cooperative internationally, would be terrific. I just think the United States doesn't have that much ability to control domestic politics in Iran. I think it's unlikely that these strikes alone are going to lead to the fall of regime. You know, the sad reality in Iran for a long time has been that the clerics, the mullahs in power in Iran, are willing to kill their own people to stay in power. And the people haven't been willing to rise up and fight and die in large enough numbers to take power. So I suspect that the regime will hang on. But then one of the key questions is, do they try to rebuild this nuclear program at some point, or do they give up? And the Israelis have said, well, if they rebuild, we can just mow the grass.
Yeah, you know what? And one of the, I was talking to Charlie Hurt today he was on Fox and Friends, and I get the impression from the White House, the way they're handling things is almost like, hey, look, I can't, I'm trying to help you out. I can't hold this guy off. If I got to let this guy off the leash, he's going to lay waste to everything. So before he goes, I'm willing to help you out. But I can only do so much. And they're still supporting Israel's right to defend itself. Again, Israel didn't declare war on Iran and Hezbollah and Hamas. They declared on Israel, and Israel is doing what any nation would do. If the United States was if this was happening, and let's say it was Mexico doing this to the United States, I don't think there'd be any question to bombing their nuclear facilities and those type of things. So do you see our presence, or you see the way the president's handling it strategically from a business aspect of things? I think it's brilliant, honestly. I think he's not splitting the diff. He's saying, hey, I'm trying to help you, but, help me help you, because they're coming for you.
Yeah, I agree. I think the Trump administration has played this pretty well. I think it's unlikely that Israel would have done this without consulting with Washington. So I think we knew this was coming, and we gave them a wink and a nod. But at the same time, Secretary Rubio and others have been very clear that this is an Israeli military action. The United States is not directly involved. And so we'll see how Iran responds. If Iran retaliates directly against Americans, Trump has been very clear that his job as president is to protect Americans anywhere. So if Iran overplays their hand, there's the risk that the United States could get involved. But I think, again, that you're right, that the Trump administration has played this well of supporting Israel without directly involving the United States.
Right. And I think the threat, again, in America, we've been dealing with fake existential threats. President Trump was Hitler and all the propaganda, whereas Israel's been dealing with an actual real existential threat. And if I could play a SOT for you real quick, number 2, Major Doran Spellman was talking about what prompted the preemptive strikes.
Look, Iran has been saying for years that they're going to be striking Israel with nuclear weapons as soon as they can enrich uranium. They have a countdown clock that literally counts down to Israel's destruction. And we know that they've been trying to enrich fissile material for years. Based on Israeli intelligence reports, we are very close to the point of no return, and to the point at which we won't even have intelligence how far their program is sitting unless we hit right now. And on that basis, Israel started this morning the Rising Lion, essentially preemptive attack on Iran to eliminate this nuclear threat. We believe that they mean to carry it out as soon as they have this material.
I mean, you can't get any more direct and honest than that. How do you push back against that to say Israel shouldn't be defending themselves?
I completely agree. This is an existential threat to Israel. A former Iranian foreign minister called Israel a two-bomb country, meaning one nuclear weapon on Tel Aviv, one nuclear weapon on Jerusalem. There's not much left of the country. And so a nuclear Iran is an existential threat to Israel. But I'd also point out it's a threat to the United States.
Yes.
Iran is working on intercontinental ballistic missiles. So if we had let this go on, Iran would have the ability to launch nuclear weapons at New York or Washington. And so Israel's really doing the United States a favor here, too, eliminating a threat from one of our biggest rivals.
Well, I also think it's important that now that America is taking, when a country makes a threat, they're taking it as a threat, not, it's because of this or that, all the progressive talk we got from the previous administration. If you are making statements like that, I would take every statement from Iran as a factual, actual threat. And I believe they thought they had enough, or they were getting, the goal was to make 10 bombs. I think they were within days of being able to make 5 to 10 bombs. And I acknowledge what you said, they only needed 2. Well, in all seriousness, they only needed 1, because it's not just going to be Israel. It's not like the nuclear fallout and dust and radiation poisoning is just going to stay in Israel. And depending on what wind gets caught up on, eventually we could have that showing up on the shores. It'll definitely be in our oceans, which it could be in our food supply. So, I mean, it is not just Israel that is in danger. It's anything, all surrounding countries. And eventually we could see it, depending on how the currents work. It could be in our own backyard. So I think you have to take the desperation of Iran trying to, because that's their only shot, is a nuclear missile. They cannot compete with Israel militarily at all. Correct? I mean, they just don't have it.
Yeah, that's right. And that's part of the reason that Iran's been investing so much in these kind of asymmetric capabilities, terrorism at the low end and nuclear weapons at the high end, because they don't really have a conventional military. And so this is their asymmetric strategy. And then to your previous point, the Biden administration really focused on avoiding escalation,
yes,
which essentially meant that the adversaries knew they could get away with a lot and there wouldn't be consequences. And I think what I hope the Trump administration is teaching Iran and others right now is that, no, if you go too far, there will be consequences, and supporting Israel now and really imposing serious cost on Iran for all their threats and all their misbehavior.
And it's good that the adults are back in the room. I guess that's the feeling that I feel when it comes to what's going on in the world today, that America is back to being to watching over and being being the world's policeman again. And I think the world's a better place when America is at the top of the food chain. So thank you so much for this time. I really appreciate it. We're going to go into our break. Always informative. It was a real honor to sit down with you. I feel that my opinions are now validated. So now I feel intellectually smart. So now I can go on another show and drop some expertise. So thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you. And again, this is Tyrus filling in for Brian Kilmeade on the Brian Kilmeade Show. We're going to get some unique perspective on this. I'm very excited to be having joining me right now Karol Markowicz, New York Post columnist and co-author of Stolen Youth, How Radicals Are Erasing Innocence and Indoctrinating a Generation. First of all, good morning. Is it still good morning? Yeah, technically it is good morning. Thanks for having us.
Hi, Tyrus. Thanks for having me.
Oh, yes. I'm excited. I can't wait to get your perspective on this. I love when you just reading in just the opening sentence about your book, How Radicals Are Erasing Innocence and Indoctrinating a Generation. That was, I think, a concentrated effort over the last 4 years, or maybe even it started a little bit sooner than that, probably towards the middle of Trump's first presidency. I think that's when the woke growth started.
Right.
And what led you to, because again, you're taking the risk by being one of the first people to like it's fashionable now for everyone to stand up and say, but being one of the people who are on the front line and probably had to deal with a lot of not just social blowback, probably financial blowback, professional blowback. Like what gave you the courage to be able to, hey, I'm making a stand on this?
Well, I have 3 kids. We were living in super left part of Brooklyn at the time where this all started to come to a head. I grew up in Brooklyn. I understood it was a left-leaning borough city. But what I saw kind of developing in the time of the pandemic and shortly before that was something else entirely. It was like, yeah, they were liberal, but suddenly it was like you could not disagree on anything. You could not take any stands that were outside of the leftist line. And I saw that they were pressuring each other more than anybody else. I mean, I was always an open conservative. I was born in the Soviet Union. I like to say you don't escape the Soviet Union, get to America and become a liberal. Just generally doesn't happen that way. So there was very little they could do to pressure me, although they certainly tried. But they kept each other in line in a way that was very reminiscent to me of totalitarian societies. And so the opening chapter of our book is about the history of this kind of thing, how totalitarianism spreads, how it's very often not the government enforcing things, it's your neighbor. We needed to have that be the kind of introduction so that people understood what the risks were to our country.
So they kind of, I always say they use virtue signaling as a cover for what they're really trying to do. They create these moments of superiority, like, oh, I donate to, the United Negro College Fund, so I'm an expert on what's going on in black neighborhoods. And the virtue signaling, because again, and the blowback, acknowledging what you said earlier, is that if you disagreed with them, like for a perfect example, I'm African American and I would make a conservative stance, and the liberal would be the one to call me racist names for not agreeing with them, and I won't go through the epitaph of words that I've been called, never in person, but the list of names that they would be calling me for just disagreeing on a policy, not even a big thing, and
right.
That seems to be the pretend seems to be the magic word with them. They pretend that they're about feelings and equity but it's my way or there's no way. And
exactly. I faced the same kind of thing being an immigrant, because as an immigrant, you're supposed to have certain beliefs. Like I have a column in today's New York Post about how I don't consider that I have anything in common with the people who came here illegally. It was very tough for my family to come. We followed all the laws. We followed laws even when they hurt. Like my mom couldn't have her sister visit for years and years and years just because she couldn't get a tourist visa. And so we never thought like, oh, let's just break the law and bring her here anyway. And so when people hear I'm an immigrant, they assume that I'm supposed to have the beliefs that they share, and I just don't have those.
And you know what? You are not alone with that. Earlier, I had a guest come on who also was dealing with, as an immigrant who did it the right way. There is a frustration with actual people who did it because the steps are extremely difficult and hard, and it costs money, in some cases lawyers, or you have to wait years, but you do it the right way. And then when you get here, it's a sense of pride because you did everything. You belong. You are part of, because not only did you prove you're valuable to be a part of the American society, like, oh, they're bringing something to this. You also sacrificed to get here. And I think that is lost. And the
other thing that's lost is that for every kind of sob story that we hear about somebody who is here illegally being removed, people need to understand that there's 5, 10, 15 people who would love to take their place and to be here legally and to follow all the rules. And they also have a sad story. They're also trying to escape something. They're also trying to come here and live the American dream. So it's kind of, unfair that these people have gotten to cut in front of the people who are doing it the right way.
And take resources. And it is a crime. And that's the thing. It is against the law. And I heard one senator argue like, well, it's a misdemeanor. And it's like, no, it doesn't matter. So is jaywalking. If you don't pay the ticket, you lose your driver's license. So, I mean, it's connective. And I thought you had a particularly strong post on X, and it kind of falls into this. You said, and I quote, people who pretend to be foreign policy experts on Twitter seem to believe Israel hit Iran without the Trump administration's okay. Stop listening to those people. They have no idea what's going on. And I guess it's a little different than when we're talking about immigration, but that very straightforward way of plain speaking and common sense.
Thank you.
You get so much blowback for just stating the obvious, correct?
Right. Well, I posted that when it wasn't like the news hadn't broken yet that the Trump administration clearly knew what Israel was going to do, but it was so obvious. Trump had been telegraphing it for days. I mean, Donald Trump is a lot of things. He is not somebody that I think keeps secrets. I think he's very transparent, and what you see is what you get. And sometimes, for better or worse, but in this case, it was like he kept saying, Iran has to stop developing its nuclear program or something may happen. And it was like so obvious.
Yeah,
so,
you had 60. He said you had 60 days. Today is day 61.
I mean, it's amazing that all of these people who pretend to be experts online, the initial kind of thoughts were, oh, Israel has betrayed Donald Trump, like as if Donald Trump wasn't completely in on what happened. You could oppose military action, especially you could oppose America's involvement. I oppose America's involvement. I don't want American boots on the ground in the Middle East. I don't want any of that. But to oppose Israel doing what it has to do to protect themselves, I think makes no sense. You have to understand that they're a sovereign nation. They have their own concerns and goals. And the fact that they're our ally is excellent, but it doesn't mean that we should always have the same exact goals. So,
and I think we're kind of seeing that. But again, Israel's dealing, they didn't ask for this war. This war was brought upon them October 7th. So let's try to remember that when we're crying. And the other thing is that they are dealing with a real existential threat. Yeah. The intelligence just showed that Iran was weeks, possibly days, or maybe within the ability to have what we think anywhere from 5 to 10 functioning nuclear weapons. And they have been quoted on many occasions over the years saying they only needed 2. So I don't understand any blowback. Did it help America? No, because we're in the middle of trying to negotiating a deal, and the president made mention of that. It doesn't help the deal, but then again, maybe it could help the deal. I just feel like
it might be an easier deal now.
Yeah, it should be.
Absolutely.
And I think taking those stances on that, and again, you also had an article coming out where you talk about I'm a legal immigrant, and don't you dare lump me into border jumpers. And I think that's we have to echo that point, because your voices are the ones that we need to hear. And it seems like the media has done a really good job of never getting going to the actual source. Well, let's see what people who went through the steps the appropriate way, what they have to say to this. And it's overwhelming. I would say 99%. They're like, no, you need to do it the right way. This is my country. I earn the right to be here. You don't get just to walk in the back door and say, hey, we get the same rights. Or in some cases, you weren't getting people giving you meal cards and flying you and putting you up in hotels for a month.
No, we were not.
Not even close.
No. We had to have somebody say that they were going to sponsor us. We couldn't arrive here and get on welfare, for example. You were not allowed to accept any public funds, actually. And the person who said that they would sponsor you was responsible for you. So if you couldn't get a job for whatever reason, maybe you chose not to learn English or whatever, that person had to support you. And so there used to be a system. That's what I also think people forget, that it wasn't always like this. It wasn't like this chaotic thing that the Democrats have largely created. There used to be a system. I was a refugee. It was a faster process for refugees who were in danger. And so this used to have a way that we used to do things, and it made sense. What we're doing now, what we've been doing for the last, 5, 10 plus years, makes no sense. And it makes no sense for Americans more than anyone. Why are we paying for people to come here, break our laws, and we fund them for that? How does that make any sense? And the idea that we're not being compassionate, I don't think it's compassionate to say anybody from anywhere in the world can just break our laws and jump our immigration line and come in. That's not compassion to me. And the risks that we're taking are huge on that. And it makes no sense. And I really would love for us to go back to what it was, 40 years ago and make it make sense again.
Because there's a lot of the extreme left is, of course, making ICE a target for enforcing the laws that they did not enforce for 4 years.
Yeah.
And I would say it's in the millions of undocumented, especially middle-aged or in-shape military-age men that have just strolled into this country over the last 4 years. I want to play a quick shot for you. Can we play 21 and 22?
When you compare the old films of the Gestapo grabbing people off the streets of Poland, and you compare them to those nondescript thugs who grabbed that graduate student, it does look like a Gestapo operation. It does look like the Gestapo. My dad served in Second World War. He fought the Nazis in Northern Africa. He fought the Nazis on the Italian peninsula. And I think he's looking down right now and he's happy that I'm fighting today's Nazis.
If we just roll this clock on the wall back 75 years, we'd be looking at a time in Nazi Germany where people ran around with signs like this new ICE sign that says, report all foreign invaders to ICE, with Uncle Sam there holding up the sign. This could have been a Gestapo member 75 years ago, report all Jews. 100 years before that, it could be a plantation owner that said, report all Negroes and all coloreds and all those who are from Africa, because they are disrupting our country. So let's not get it twisted here.
I would say he 1,000% has it twisted. First of all, how dare you?
Yeah.
How dare anyone compare any situation to what happened with Hitler, what happened with the Gestapo, what happened to Israel, what happened to Jewish people in World War II. The fact that you would even try to compare it, shows that, you have no class and no real understanding of history. Maybe you need to refresh yourself. But when you hear that type of talk as an immigrant, as somebody who comes from a country that has had issues similar to what has happened in Germany back in the 40s, how important is it to push back on this type of language?
It's just disgusting. The idea that the Gestapo was rounding up Jews and sending them back to where their homeland was. That's actually the whole problem, right? The people who believe that Jews didn't have a homeland and shouldn't have a homeland now also thought that they shouldn't be allowed to go to what was then British Mandate of Palestine. Jews would have loved to be sent back there. That's the whole thing. It's like they weren't rounded up and sent back to their homes. They were rounded up and murdered.
Yeah,
and that's
attempted to be genocide, real genocide.
Yeah. So it's a little bit of a difference between being able to go back to the country where you're from, where a lot of the people say that they feel the affinity for anyway. When we're watching these protests and riots in Los Angeles, they're waving Mexican flags. I can tell you, I have never waved the flag of the Soviet Union or Russia or Ukraine or anything ever in my life, especially while rioting in the streets. I came here to be American. That's what legal immigrants do. We want to just come here and be American. We don't want to hold on to something else. We don't want to be anything else. And that's really a major difference that I'm seeing. Yeah,
we're seeing a simulation versus just chaos.
Yeah.
And thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you,
Riveting. Best of luck with your book. I'm going to pick it up myself, get some good reading in. And again, thank you for your patriotism. And I think you're a strong voice for what American citizens who immigrated from other countries that came in the right way. So do not stifle your voice. And at least now you're starting to see that you're not the only person standing in the middle of the room going, hey, this ain't right. So now it's starting to be echoed and we're seeing a real change. And I, for one, am thankful for that. So thank you so much for your time today. And thank you.